Hello, hello, and welcome to the Mr. Menopause Show. And I am really excited to share a conversation that I'm having with my guest today. His name is Gary Sandoval, and he is going to be sharing his experience with his wife going through menopause. And this is a conversation I think is really important for people to hear and understand and know exactly what men would like to know about with regards to menopause, and as well as what they experience when their wife is experiencing such a life-changing change in their life as well. So welcome to the show, Gary.
Hey, thank you. I'm glad to be here. My story goes back a little bit. I'm actually going to be celebrating our 50th anniversary come July 14th. So I've been with my wife, Carmen, since she was 15, but we weren't married at the time. She was my girlfriend in high school. But we've been married for quite some time. And what happened when she was in her early 40s, all of a sudden she started getting these hot flashes on a continuous basis. And we really didn't know what it was offhand. And it was kind of a conflict to have a conversation or try and do anything with her during these periods because she was so uncomfortable, and us both not knowing what was creating this issue. There was a lot of anxiety for both of us. Sooner or later, we finally figured it out by going to the doctors, and it was explained to us what it really was, which is a very common trait. And I had thought initially that this was just something she'd get over with immediately and within a month or two or something, but this actually lasted for a long time. And it was no fun. It was no fun because I would try and comfort her. I would try and talk to her during these periods. And it was just more of a neglect of having a relationship with me at the time because she was just so uncomfortable with it. And unfortunately, I could relate to it because I actually also had hot flashes at some time. So afterwards, I did learn what she was going through, but not initially. So it did take some time, but it was very difficult, period. It lasted for many years. And she did try some medications and tried doing some certain exercises and things like that to subdue the pressure, the pain, and all what have you. But it was a difficult period in our life. And when you get to the romantic aspect of it, now, mind you, I'm a Cancer and she's a Gemini. So I don't know if you're into astrology or not, but we're really yin and yang, FYI. But there was moments where I would wanted to be sensually aroused and romantic with her, and it just wasn't going to happen. And it just got to the point that it was very frustrating for a few years. But you have to learn to live with the situation and then think about, hey, what am I going to do? Do I work on trying to do something different? And we did. We tried doing different things by, going out to different places, hanging out with different people, doing different exercises. And it just wouldn't go away. It was just something that normally was going to have to, take its own path. That's basically how it worked for us, very uncomfortable moments with a lot of anxiety on both parts.
Now, when you said it lasted many years, do you know how many years for sure?
Yeah, it lasted almost close to 15 years, in fact. It actually subsided after like the 10 years, and it wasn't as common, but it did last for quite a few more years after that. Mine's was only like maybe a couple of years. So, and I didn't know that men could have menopause or whatever it is, but I could actually relate to it after I actually experienced it for the first time. And it's not comfortable. It's like wearing wool on your face, or sticky, some sticky cloth or something that was picking at you. That's how it felt. So I got to know how she was struggling through it as well.
Yeah. Now, being someone that actually was experiencing something similar, Cersei, a lot of, I'm glad that you're actually open to speaking about this because, most men with our machismo, we don't like to speak about these kind of issues that we're going through as well. So like you said, on one hand, you're able to relate to what she was going through. Now, You said it lasted 10 years. That's actually very common. A lot of people don't realize this, that it's actually called the perimenopause phase, which
Okay.
lasts 4 to 10 years
Okay.
before she actually goes into menopause. Menopause is when her estrogen is like completely gone. And that 10 years is as the estrogen is declining along with the progesterone. And that's why those symptoms are happening. Now, I know you mentioned hot flashes and the sexual discomfort that she was having. Were there any other symptoms that you noticed, like mood swings or changes in physical characteristics or things like that with her?
Actually, I alluded to the word anxiety because that's what we were both feeling, but I'm glad you brought up mood swings. And that was part of the problem on a continuous basis. And that's kind of what I alluded to when I said her sign's a Gemini. So she can have one personality right now
Mhm.
and one way of thinking right now. And within a second, it becomes something totally different. So that's the way I've always known her. But at that time, that period, this was extremely more prevalent. You would really feel the anxiety and the nervousness, and I at sometimes would just have to walk away because I didn't know what else to do. I mean, I initially tried helping and what have you, but there were some tough moments, that you just got to walk through and talk through, and hopefully time will heal it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, it's interesting. I spoke with my brother, whose wife also went through menopause, and he was saying the same thing. It was one of those things with her moods where he's like, he didn't even know if he should say hello to her. He's like, should I say hello today? He's like, because
Yeah.
you just never knew. And again, a lot of people don't realize that mood swings are a major symptom of menopause. And like you're saying, you just thought it was part of her Gemini personality just
Right.
coming out. When actually, there's actually in my practice alone, I've seen 45 symptoms of menopause, but it's recorded that there's up to 60. And it could be anything, heart palpitations, hair loss, allergies. People acquire allergies. Some people have blood sugar issues and end up being on diabetes,
Mhm.
getting pre-diabetic. Even women thinking that their sadness is depression or anxiety, they end up being prescribed depressive medications when it's actually their hormones that are changing, and that's why the medication isn't actually working for them. So you said you guys looked into different things, that you were trying different options to try to relieve some of that. What were some things that you guys looked into?
Well, ironically, we have three children. Okay, and two of our male and female, Andrea and Bianca, are actually also Kundalini yoga instructors. Okay, so we did yoga, we did meditation. Those were the things we did try as well. But funny you should bring up the depression. She was prescribed, and I can't remember what the medication was, but for depression, because she was getting really depressed about the whole thing. But she also had a reaction, a negative reaction to the medication. So she didn't take it for a long period. I think she just took it like 1 or 2 days or a couple of days, but she wasn't feeling good with that medication. So she stopped taking it. But I think the one thing that I think helped the most for me was the meditation and the yoga. That really helped us a lot, I think.
And did you do those things together?
Sometimes, not all the time. I ended up typically doing it at night when I was away from her,
Mhm.
and she was doing it early in the morning. So we did do it a few times together, and especially when we were on vacation.
Mhm.
But for the most part, we're typically doing it at our own time.
Mhm. Now, you said that you guys were able to get to the doctor and find out that it was menopause. A lot of
Right.
people don't even get that diagnosis. So,
Right.
how long was it before you guys got that diagnosis, that you were noticing that what she was going through?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, and I don't recall exactly, but I think it was like 2 or 3 years after we
Oh,
first noticed it,
wow.
because it was just in the beginning, it seemed like a very natural progression. In fact, I was beginning to think that she was not falling out of love with me.
Mhm.
Okay, that's what I was beginning to think.
Yeah.
It was just our relationship was going to helter skelter, and I didn't know why. But I think after about maybe 2 or 3 years, somewhere in there, we decided to go try and figure that out, uh, and see what we could get as far as recommendations, and that's what happened. It was probably no more than 2 years, maybe.
Mhm. You know, I think this is another reason I think that it's really important for men to be part of this conversation, because a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of women, I think ARP said that it was more than 20% of women who get divorced during menopausal years.
Mhm.
And it's, again, correlated to this. Like you're saying, you thought she was falling out of love with you. And a lot of men think that, and it's because of the mood swings, the changes. And these are chemical issues that are happening in her body that she has absolutely no control over. And even she's not even aware. So she may even be
Right.
thinking, you know, what's going on. And then when it comes to the sex, what happens down there for women going through that and the loss of estrogen is that sex is actually painful for them.
Right.
And so, like you said, men think, oh, she just doesn't want to have sex with me anymore. When actually it's that she's in pain, she's dry, she has, you know, she's more prone to UTIs, more prone to
Yep.
all these other issues down there. And again, a lot of men don't know this because we're not in the conversation. So having these conversations, I think, are really important for men. I think it's family members as well, because if you have kids that are at home, they're going to see you going through the mood swings and all these kind of things, right?
Yep. Yep. It's
So
funny you mentioned that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead,
I was
please.
going to say it's funny you mentioned it because the UTIs were really commonplace for the first couple of years. She was constantly having this. That was another medication that she was having to go and take, treatments, I should say. But yeah, I forgot all about that. And the dryness, that was
Yeah,
pretty common. But I was beginning to think it was just me, and she had found somebody else, I guess. But
yeah.
it was just weird because, you know, we had been together for, at that point in time, a little over 20 years.
Mhm,
And just things had been pretty normal. You know, I think
mhm.
we had normal arguments and stuff of that nature that most couples have. But when this came about, it was like night and day, man.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was
So
totally different.
So when you found out that when you guys got the actual diagnosis that it was menopause, for you, was that like was it kind of a relief for you, or was it just more confusing for you? What was your feeling about that diagnosis?
It was a relief, but my only concern, or my major concern, was, well, how long is it going to last?
Yeah.
You know, because at that time we were finding out that it could last forever, you know, typically. So I didn't want to be going through that kind of a life for, you know, the rest of my life with
Mhm.
her. I wanted things to kind of get back to normal. So yeah, it was just difficult, period, you know, bottom line.
Yeah. And were there any, did they prescribe any hormone replacement therapy or anything to help with the symptoms back then? And
Yeah,
actually, if you can tell me what year was that this all happened, or the
this
year?
was the medications. Let me see. Moved down here. I've been at this house 20 years. It was around the mid 70s, early
Ah,
mid
okay.
70s to early 80s timeframe.
Okay. Oh,
Somewhere
wow.
there.
So there wasn't much information or medication back then, actually.
No, not really. It was kind of, we were at a loss, you know, just trying to figure out. And by the way, she was really frustrated with the doctor she was seeing to begin with, because
Hmm.
she was feeling that the doctor wasn't really, you know, paying a lot of attention to her needs,
Hmm.
from what I recall. In fact, she switched two different doctors at that, in like a 5-year period.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
Yeah.
I've had the same doctor for the last 20 years.
Yeah. Well, sadly, there's still not great education for doctors as it relates to menopause. Even to this day, I have clients that have gone. I even saw a study recently where they did a study of gynecologists, and they said that I think more than 60% of them said that they were not comfortable with the amount of education they got on menopause to even treat their clients with menopause. So a lot of the people who are specialists in menopause actually get outside training beyond their schooling. So it's you really do have to look for a menopause specialist even nowadays. I remember back in the 80s, I remember my mom going through menopause and seeing her go through the hot flashes, and we had no clue what it was. And I don't know about you guys, but back then they called it the change. They didn't even call it menopause. They called
Yeah,
it the change of life, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't
I
even like
remember that.
like the term menopause. Yeah, so it
Right.
was, and it's still like today. But luckily, we're seeing now that there's more conversations coming out. And like I said earlier, I love seeing the conversations, but I also believe that it's so important for men to be part of the conversations because of just like what you said, you were experiencing this with your wife but you were completely in the dark, right?
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
knowing what was going on. And tell me this, do you think that it would be beneficial for more men to be more educated on menopause along with the wives?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, ironically, our oldest daughter is Bianca. She's 40 years old, and she's just started getting it. I'd say maybe a year and a half ago,
Mhm.
somewhere along those lines. So the good thing is that mom was able to explain to her what's going on and advise her with what knowledge and experience she had as well. So yes, I think everybody should be, anybody that's in a family that's got a male or female at certain ages of their time frame, they're probably going to be the recipients of this. It just seems to be fairly common from what I see.
Mhm.
And to be able to experience it and then be able to send that knowledge and help the persons around them, immediately around them, with giving them some ideas as to what to do or what's going on in their bodies. I think that's very helpful, whether it's the male or the female. I mean, I kind of just worked through it with my wife and we kind of learned together.
Mhm.
But I think it would behoove all couples and anybody that's got family to just talk about it openly. And I'm sure that's not a very common subject to discuss in family meetings, but I think it's pertinent. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And one of the things that I offer through my programming is menopause and relationship training. And it's
Yeah.
specifically for couples and families, just so that
Okay.
you know what to expect, because there's going to be some life changes. I mean, some severe life change. Again, like I said, it affects them emotionally,
Right.
physically, psychologically. So they're going through all these changes. I remember one lady even told me that there was a moment where she knew she had to get a change when she said something in her, just this rage came over her and she literally started stabbing a chair with a knife in front of her family. And she knew then something is wrong. I need to go get help.
Yeah.
But she said, and it was beyond her control. And she said it scared her even more than it scared her family, And
Yeah.
again, it's a chemical change that is happening to women. And I think that everyone should be aware of that. I also do things with workplace because women actually quit their jobs because they can't get symptom relief and they're afraid because they can be talking to someone mid-sentence and forget what they're saying. And just think about
Yeah.
that if you're in a meeting and you just have a brain fog and so they end up quitting their jobs before they get fired. And we all know that women over 40 are the fastest growing workforce demographic. So we're
Right.
losing them as well. And you had mentioned the ages and people understanding, knowing. Well, every woman is going to experience menopause on some level that is between 40 and 65, right?
Okay.
So I always say if you're fortunate enough to live to that age, you're going to experience menopause on some level. Some women have very
Male or female?
and here's the thing,
Right.
like you and I were talking pre-show, both of us, you and I, went through andropause. Well, I'm actually going through it right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm still in it. I'm actually on testosterone hormone replacement therapy, which has
Okay.
helped. I've worked in the health and fitness industry for 22 years, and so I've always been very fit, very healthy. I eat healthy. That's how I coach. And when my thing happened, what happened was out of nowhere, within like 3 months, I gained 40 pounds. I
Wow.
hadn't changed the way I ate. I hadn't changed my exercise routine. My doctor told me I was pre-diabetic out of nowhere. And I'm like, me, pre-diabetic? I'm like, that's impossible,
Yeah.
But all these changes were happening in my body. I started getting hives. My skin started changing. And like most people do, what I did was, okay, I'm going to eat less, exercise more. And unfortunately, that process or whatever threw things so chemically off of my body that I actually had a stroke.
Wow.
And it wasn't until a year later, after all that, it's because what I was told is that was like the precursor of my body changing. Like for men, our testosterone should be, above 300, I believe it's called nanograms or something like that, above
Okay.
300. Mine was 170.
Wow.
So it had plummeted. And I was in my early to mid 40s. I'll be 52 this year. So I was in my early to mid 40s when that started happening. And it wasn't until like a year and a half later of my own research. My doctor didn't even tell me this. I just knew this based on my own metabolic health background. And I found out men have menopause too. It's called andropause, and it's when our testosterone levels drop. And I'm like, all these years people say that men are going through a midlife crisis. I bet they're going through menopause. And just like men, we just don't talk about it. We just try to power through it. And what do men do to feel better? They get a faster car. They work out more. They do all these things. So I am convinced that a midlife crisis is actually male menopause in my opinion, because it happens during that age period and everything.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess we're pretty blessed that we didn't have to go through getting a stroke, but God, you look pretty good though. If you had a stroke, it doesn't.
Well, the doctor said that at the initial thing, they called it a transient ischemic attack, which means that the blood clot stopped there for a moment, but then it eventually passed. So for me, I didn't even realize that I was having a stroke at the moment. I just had this flush of exhaustion come over my body. I was actually at the gym working out when it happened. I drove home, everything. And it was when I got home and my partner saw me, who works at the hospital, and it was like, I think you're having a stroke, because I couldn't speak. It came to a part where I tried to speak to him and nothing would come out. And then I started freaking out, and then he noticed my face, and then he's like, "You're having a stroke."
Paralyzed on one side.
Yeah, it was. He said it just looked a little. It wasn't severe, but he said he could tell it was off. Right. By the time the ambulance got there and drove me, by the time I got to the hospital, it had passed. That's why they called it an ischemic attack. But they noticed later on the scan that I did have what would be a missing part in your brain that is technically a stroke. But
well, thank God you were okay on this.
Yes. I was absolutely I only have one issue. I have one long-term issue with my left eye, but it's fixed with contacts and glasses. So
can't tell. Everything looks great, man.
Well, I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Now, for you, with your own what you now believe to have been male menopause, did you seek out any treatment or anything, or did you just power through it?
I just powered through it. I wasn't getting it as frequently as my wife was getting it. I would get it. I got it maybe 3 or 4 times, pretty heavy, like that one incident I mentioned earlier. But it was very sporadic. And I just kept thinking, it's just something I'm going through and I'll get over it and what have you. You got to bear in mind, I've had 14 operations and 11 medical procedures. So
gotcha.
I've been under a lot of medical environments with different deals, right? So that's, it's like almost every time I get into a medical environment in my body, in my system, I try and fix it. And if not, if I can't fix it, I go to my doctors. But I just been involved with so many surgeries and stuff that I don't want to do another one.
I gotcha. Yeah.
No fun at all. But no, I just kind of did it on my own and just kind of hung in there. And it wasn't as severe as my wife's. That's the main reason I didn't really pursue any medical support.
Gotcha. Yeah. And another thing that a lot of people don't realize about menopause is that once you get past that, like you said, you guys were 15 years, go past that hump. Once you get past the perimenopause phase and you actually hit menopause and the symptoms kind of go away. Did that happen for your wife?
Yes. Thank God.
Yeah.
It finally went away. Like I said, it lasted a good 10 years, more or less, but it did subside also after the first few years. So thank God. But the first few years were the most crucial as far as we were concerned. It was just, we didn't know what to do and what to expect, but thank God it actually subsided,
Yeah. And so tell me from your point of view, what was it that basically, I guess, made you stick in there? Because like you said, you thought she fell out of love with you, and a lot of men would just leave. So what made you stick in?
Well, I guess the bottom line is that, there's a lot of love there. We actually still talk and still laugh and still, I have a business and she's with me 24 hours a day with my business. We have a company that we do business in Mexico and Central America with electronics. And then I do voiceovers and I do acting. So turns out that I'm with her every day. And you know what? It's going to be 50 years that we've been legally married. And I think the relationship is so yin and yang that we're like opposites that it really helps a lot.
Yeah.
It's not like we're so in common with everything we do together, because I think for us, or at least for me, the difference in the relationships between the both of us keeps it strong and healthy. But
Yeah.
no, I just thoroughly enjoy being around her, and I enjoy getting her pissed off, to be honest with you. Just playing around with her. You know?
Yeah.
I like
No,
getting her goat.
and you know, and I knew what that answer was going to be, and I just asked because there was recently a huge conversation. I'm not going to say who did the menopause conversation, but at the very end, they actually did finally bring a guy on, and you know, and they asked him, you know, do you have a question for us? And his question was, I just want to know, what are things that I can do as a husband to help my wife get through it? And what was interesting to me was that everyone in the audience was just like, oh, you're a good man. And I'm like, what loving husband wouldn't want to know, want to help his wife, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, so it's one
And
of
you're
those,
in it together, you can't
exactly.
get away from it unless you go through a separation or something. But as long as you're in together and you want to be together, you got to find the way to make it happen,
Yeah, and I would probably guess that you probably got stronger after this situation and making it through it.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. My wife's an angel. She's been, what, I go to the gym 3 days a week, and well, not with this bad weather, maybe it's twice a week, but I've always eaten well. Well, not when I was real young, but my point is, she eats meat and doesn't exercise, and nothing ever goes wrong with her. Me, on the other hand, she's constantly, at my bedside taking care of me. But she's just an angel, and I think that's one of the main reasons that I'm just so devoted to her, because of all that she's seen me go through, and she's always been there.
Nice.
Oof.
Yeah. So tell me, for other men that are watching that either maybe at the beginning stages of this with their wives, or have not reached this point yet, what advice would you give them as with regards to the experience that they're going to go through with their wife as they go through the menopause phase of their life, which they will go through?
Yeah. I think the most important thing is to actually get educated, seek advice, go to the medical field and try and explore with them what are the alternatives, what's the expectations, understand it, because the more you understand the situation, the better off you're going to be. But I think that's the key thing is communicate with each other, get as much outside help, because we don't know everything, right? But if you go to the pros and the people that have studied this, they can help you feel better and alleviate some of the anxiety, some of the stress, and some of the uncomfortable feelings you're getting or will get. But definitely go out there and get as educated as possible.
Yeah, and I love that you said that about trying to understand, because one of the things that I hear a lot from women going through this, when men come into the conversation, is they say, you wouldn't understand. Right. Yeah. And I always say, if you continually tell someone they're not going to understand, then they're going to stop wanting to understand. So instead of saying that, explain it. Let us know what you're feeling. Let us know what you're going through. Don't shut us out, because we're here to help. We love you. We want you to, be better. And if there's anything that we can do, and maybe it's, one of the things one of the ladies that I've heard say is, maybe even though it may be uncomfortable at the moment, it could be a matter of, just sleep in the other room for a couple of days, because she doesn't want to. She's having a hot flash all night. She doesn't want to be dealing with you as she's having night sweats. She wants to open the window or whatever, and you're cold, so get rid of that, the thing of thinking, that it's about her trying to dismiss you or get away from you. It's just, she's just trying to survive, because menopause is tough.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
But like I said earlier, I didn't really become a evangelist of it until it hit me.
Right.
Once it hit me, like, oh, that's what she's going through.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah,
I didn't know about, to be honest, if I was having a heart attack or something, if I was about to explode or die. I really thought I was about to burst. That's what I really, you probably have heard or read. I know I've read in the past where you've heard of people that exploded, there's a word for it, I can't think of it right now, but that's what I thought was happening to me. Is I thought
Combustion? Was it the combustion?
Yeah, I thought that's what was happening as I was driving on the freeway. I went like, Jesus Christ, and especially with my face turning so red, it was like unbelievable. But yeah, it's not a fun thing. And it's definitely wise to spend some time trying to get educated on as much as possible. I agree.
Yeah. For me, I never had the hot flashes. But one of my clients said that one of the ways that the closest thing that would be to having a hot flash is when you take a niacin capsule and that flush that comes over your body. They're like, they said it's not the same, but it's the closest to that feeling that you'll get because that heat that rises. And what's different is that you don't know when it's going to happen. It's just going to happen. Whereas the niacin, you know it's coming, But I'm like, okay, even that. I remember the first time I did that. I didn't know that niacin did that, but I remember the feeling. It was quite scary, So I can imagine if it's just coming out of nowhere. So, but
it is scary. That one time I alluded to earlier about when I was driving and going to that lunch meeting, I actually was thinking about calling to cancel my lunch meeting. And I was thinking about pulling over and going to the hospital. That's how bad I thought it was, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I can imagine, and just think that women deal with that every day. I had a client that was having hot flashes every 30 minutes. Could you imagine that?
It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, really tough. Yeah. Well, you know what? I appreciate you coming on so much and sharing your story. I truly believe this is going to be eye-opening for a lot of men out there, and hopefully it'll help to save some relationships or extend some relationships, and let people really understand that, like I said, menopause is a woman's life issue. It's not a woman's health issue. It's something that's going to impact her relationships, her work, every part of her life. And so I think everyone in her life needs to be aware of it and need to know how they can be more supportive through the process. So thank you. I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, thank you. God bless you. I wish I'd have met you 40 years ago.
Well,
thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you so much. Take care.
See ya. Bye-bye.